Well, we're back in the park. It seems like months. It's been a number of weeks since we've been here, and it's nice to be back in the park. The weather has been really bad. It's been cold and raining with a lot of wind, and so filming videos out in the park has been very impractical, unreasonable. So the weather is now great. It's 63 degrees out. There's basically no wind. The clouds in the sky are all above 20,000 feet. They are made up of tiny little ice crystals. They are cirrus clouds, and they're beautiful, very wispy, feathery clouds made up of ice crystals. So you look around here and you can see that things are very different than they were in the videos that you saw in this location months ago. There are no leaves on the trees. The trees have dropped their leaves, the leaves have fallen, and in fact our season fall is named because the leaves fall. It's not an accident. These are deciduous trees. There are some evergreen trees, not too many. Now these trees are not completely dormant at this stage. They've been working. They've been working behind the scenes, if you will. They've been making the buds in anticipation of spring. When spring arrives, we need buds that are going to make the leaves so that the trees can grow. And those buds have to form now. They have to form during this slow part of the season. So before I started recording, I went over and looked at the branches of some of these oak trees, and they indeed have buds on them. They are preparing to make the leaves that will restore these trees to their beauty that we expect in the spring. This pair of plane trees you may recognize from previous videos. I used them as a background for a lot of my videos that I made here in the spring. When the foliage is green and the light is right in the morning, these trees are absolutely beautiful. Behind them you can see the lake. As we pan to the left, you can see the lake down there. I made a lot of videos from this general location. This is down below those plane trees. There's a big wide meadow here that is adjacent to the lake. And I filmed a lot here. Working in a public park, making videos, is an excellent workshop for developing a sense of citizenship, because this is a public place. And the other people using this space have as much right to it as I do. So if I'm making a video and somebody makes a lot of noise, I absolutely have no right to complain about their conduct, because this is a shared space. Now, I can have private thoughts that perhaps they should be more thoughtful, but it is not reasonable to go give them a hard time because of their behavior. This is a public place. There are a lot of places in this park where I've never gone because I have preferentially sought out good places to film videos and have really not come here for the expressed purpose of exploration and just enjoying the park. This is my other studio. This is the place I work. So on this visit, I'm planning on also enjoying the environment here. Here, there's some ducks. To the left, there's a pair of mallards, the green-head mallard, probably hard to see. Further out, there are some grebes, other water birds. Here's a young one. And then you can see at the far end of the lake, the dam, and that dam controls the level of the water in this lake. I'm now walking on a path that I've never taken before because, again, I was here making videos, and this is a walking path along the lake. To my right, there is some bamboo growing there, but that bamboo is dormant. Oh, what a treat. You can see a tree here with blossoms on it. These blossoms, this is a dogwood tree. As we look at the foliage, there are blossoms that are going to emerge, and there are a lot of buds that are getting ready to give off their leaves. Dogwoods are a sign of impending spring. Dogwoods are among the earlier trees to blossom before the spring. Technically, this is still winter. We've gotten to the northernmost portion of this trail. It ends in a cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac is a term you may be familiar with. It's not originally from English, it comes from French. And this is an example of a cul-de-sac. That is, it's an enlarged area at the end of a road that is a dead end. So it's a place to turn around. And cul-de-sacs are used in neighborhoods if the street comes to an abrupt end. Rather than having it just stop, they frequently enlarge the pavement so it's easy for an automobile to turn around, and then they build houses around that cul-de-sac. So this is a cul-de-sac in a park. There's a lot of water bird activity hanging on low limbs. Under that eucalyptus tree on the island are a couple of cormorants. In the water, there are Canada geese, and then a variety of ducks. That island is inaccessible. We can't go there. Across the lake, there's another meadow, and the meadow comes up onto a hill or a knoll. If a meadow is flat, you could just call it a meadow, but if it becomes a hill, then you could call it a hill or a knoll. And I've actually made a lot of videos from that location on the other side of the lake, using the lake as a backdrop. The reason I choose these places has to do with the light at the time I am filming, and it has to do with the amount of road noise. I want my voice to be clear so that you can hear the language, so I avoid making videos too near to the road. This is pleasant. I've not been to this part of the park until today. I didn't really know what was up here, but now I can tell you there's a cul-de-sac and a bunch of park benches, so people come, and if it's warm enough, they might sit and enjoy themselves in this park. Now I'm walking back. There are a couple more locations I'd like to show you. This is really fun. It's nice to be back in the park. Okay, we're down at the lake, and we're on a peninsula. So this is a piece of land that projects out into the lake. So there's water on this side. There's also water on this side. So we're on a peninsula, and this tip of the peninsula we would call a point. We're on a point of land, a point. It sticks out into the water. In these reeds down there, you see a white head, and that is an egret. It is an American egret. They're white. They're relatively large birds. They're shorebirds, and they're going to eat things like frogs and insects, tadpoles, things along the edge of the water and in the water. Sometimes they fish in shallow water, and they'll catch fish. One of the fun things we have here is a very large steel bridge that crosses the lake as it is joined by the creek, bringing water from above. This tree shows a bunch of parasitic plants. The tree has lost its leaves because it's a deciduous tree, but there are a bunch of clumps of green foliage, and those plants that are growing on this tree have not lost their leaves. So that is mistletoe. Mistletoe is a parasitic plant that grows into the tree and gets nutrients and water from the tree, but is fairly harmless. This is a heavy infestation of mistletoe. Usually it's not quite so much, and they're not often this big. Certainly in North America, perhaps in other parts of the world, mistletoe has a tradition associated with it that you hear about around the time of Christmas. And the idea is if someone is standing under the mistletoe, they need to kiss. So this is a tradition for sure in North America, but perhaps in other parts of the world as well. That's mistletoe, a parasitic plant. We've come to another area where I made a lot of videos in the spring. It's very different today because the trees have lost all their leaves. That tree was the backdrop of a lot of videos because it's a beautifully formed tree and it served well as a companion. The people that run this park have embraced the Christmas season as a time to put up a lot of decorations, and this whole area in here, this little hill, had a lot of lights set up so that people in the evenings could drive their car through and enjoy themselves in the park looking at the light displays. They called it the fantasy of lights. The environment here is very different on this visit for a couple of reasons. One is the change in the foliage. The other is it's later in the afternoon, and so the activities are different. When I got here in the spring, in the early morning, I found myself playing cat and mouse with a lot of sources of noise because this was the time of day that the garbage trucks would come by and empty all the big garbage receptacles and take all the garbage off to the dump. And these big trucks make a lot of noise. I didn't get angry at them, but many times the noise they made as they were doing their job was very disruptive, and I had to stop the recording and wait for them to finish their task. We're coming up to a tree that looks very familiar. These are the blossoms and seed pods of what I called a rain tree when I was growing up. The reason this tree seems special to me is in the schoolyard when I was a little kid going to elementary school or primary school, there was a large rain tree. And so we didn't have one of those trees in our yard, so it was a different sort of tree. I was unfamiliar with it. When I got to the school, I asked what it was, and someone said it was a rain tree. And that's the same kind of tree. This meadow has a lot of space, a lot of trees. There's an area over there where you can cook food and serve it to a lot of different people. This is a picnic area within the park. Looking more closely at these trees, they all have buds on them, so they will be putting out leaves shortly. You don't see that every day. I stopped the recording because an airplane was flying over, and so that you didn't have to deal with the noise of an airplane, I stopped the recording. And then it soon became clear it was more than one airplane. It wasn't one airplane, it was two, and they were flying in formation. They were also very old airplanes. They were tail draggers. That is, Their main landing gear was in the front, and then they had a tail wheel, otherwise known as conventional landing gear. Those airplanes are harder to land, a little harder to take off, but mostly harder to land safely. And those were a couple of old tail draggers that were flying formation. They were flying in the same direction, at the same altitude, close to each other, and you know they were coordinating their flight. They were going the same place. Formation flying. So when the airplanes flew over and I explained that to you, I said, there's something you don't see every day. I might have said, that's something you don't see every day. And if I was talking to someone, I might use their name. So I might say, that's something you don't see every day, Chauncey. So what's that from? There was a cartoon show in the 60s and 70s, very popular in the United States. It's now available on YouTube and you can watch these cartoons. And it's the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. Bullwinkle the moose and Rocky is a flying squirrel. Rocky and Bullwinkle are very much part of American culture, and there are a lot of things that they said that people remember. And one of the quotes was, that's something you don't see every day, Chauncey. So there were two characters in this cartoon named Edgar and Chauncey, and they provided commentary about the strange things that were going on around them. So one of the quotes is, that's something you don't see every day, Chauncey. That's from popular culture, The Bullwinkle Show. Well, it's been nice to come back to the park. It was nice that it's nice and quiet. It's cool but not cold. And I do look forward to coming back when there is a lot of foliage on these trees. This park will be beautiful in another perhaps 6 or 8 weeks. The buds are formed and the leaves are going to be coming out shortly. And I do look forward to that. What a pleasure. And if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.